Hey guys, Luna here, and welcome back to a game called Our Life. We're making our way through further conversations of the last day with friends and family. I'm not complaining, but I do have to say it's weird to be sunbathing in a pool and not the beach. Pools have the pros, if you say so. Crossing his arms and letting his eyes shut, George shares his own perspective. It was rare, but it was always welcome. I think it's weird to be at this pool and not the ones we grew up with. Oh yeah? I only massaged them from a distance. I don't know the joy of truly being there. That's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than this.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me too. While the brothers wore a set of nostalgic grins, Liz smiles far more devious. If you want to, I wonder if you could sneak a peek. All the gentleman's sentimentality from George's face dropped to the floor and metaphorically shattered. I'm curious what she's thinking. The idea of doing that never in this lifetime would cross George's mind if he had been left on his own. But Liz was there and continued to make her case. There has to be a way to slip in. We don't have to be long. No one will know we don't actually live there.
I figured.
Elizabeth never changes. Her rule-breaking intentions were brushed off entirely with a lighthearted laugh by Derek. It was nothing more than talk, but at least it had been calm. Even voice made it real. We could do it. The lock broke years ago. No way they fixed it. Derek snatched the mantle of a brazen-induced shock of George due to the middle son's own stunning suggestion. Nicholas whistled in amusement. He was nearly as scandalized. She really brings out George's bad boy side. Damn straight. Maybe I shouldn't have brought her after all. I don't know, Derek. Impulsiveness seems to run in the family. Did I have to remind you of the time you jumped into the old pool while fully dressed? The whole group laughed. Liz hadn't been there, but the fact like that couldn't be kept under wraps. His brothers, parents, friends, and random acquaintances were all aware of the night Derek took a night swim in sports jersey and jeans. Exactly. I'm definitely not the only Cesare with a mischievous streak, bro.
Come on.
Hey, Nico's way worse than both of us combined. Guilty as charged. Liz, George, and Nico, the troublemaker trio, had, which they now were, shared a sneaky laugh between one another.
What?
But you can't be serious. We already got a pool, not even swimming in it. We don't even need another more legal one. Shook your head, what a buzzkill. The oldest and allegedly most mature person there was another matter entirely. Well, let's be fair, it's still 3 against 2. Fully committing to the criminal persona, Liz has threaded her fingers together and spoke with leading coyness. She cared nothing more for what was fair, but could use it to her advantage against Derek. Having to play hero suited Derek, he leveled a cool head against Liz, not backing down 1 inch. He had his own reasons to feel confident. Are you sure that's the same thing? I'm saying that for sure we shouldn't go. It's the opposite of being good hosts. The Cesare brothers are better than that. She gasped. It was obvious where this was going. She turned Derek to look at her soon-to-be former coworkers. The defiant gleam in her eyes had faded entirely, replaced by steadfastness. It's probably for the best that we can. There's nothing we could do there that we couldn't do here. In an instant, Liz was alone in a position. It would be a sad day when Derek's and your earnest advice couldn't reach through the babies he sat. Derek rolled her eyes. It's funny how the signature of the oldest in your family and the youngest of theirs. Her tight-lipped smirk was still all her own and present in the moment.
Okay.
I'll say, phew, bullet dodged. Thanks.
Forget it.
No worries, I figured I could count on my bros. George and Nico beamed proudly like the good-natured big boys they were. As long as you and Derek were there to watch over them, they wouldn't be led astray by the other parties. After a near disaster, the gang resettled into their places at the appropriate pool, and the hangout session continued as intended. George stood near his brothers as he recounted a recent paper he penned on the Doppler effect. Nico and Derek gleefully expressed at awe of their achievements.
Nice work.
You've always been the smarts of our operation. With 3 chances, at least one of us had to have a decent amount of brain cells to rub together. Brains, bronze, and looks. Your brothers have it all. A full set of rosy faces gleamed at you. Thanks, Luna. George's informant explanation was cut off by a face-fast techno-pop beat. It wasn't a bad tune, but it made Nicholas shake. She's calling now. It is a girlfriend. Call it. Yeah, was thinking to myself. He scrambled to retrieve a long abandoned phone. The events of the morning came back to him with clarity. She was the real reason he had been so distracted. He watched him team cautiously. Nico had completely frozen after managing to get the device out of his deep pockets. What did I do? Answer it. George's plain reply. It was perfectly reasonable, and the only other option was, besides, not answer it. Unfortunately, the bit of common sense was no hope to Nico. His breathing was rapid and the phone shook in his hands. Deco. Derek, you give advice. You got more experience liking somebody than me. I only found one less than a year ago. In most cases, Derek was the first to jump on solving a problem, but he'd pretend not to see the whole scene, at least until he had forcibly been thrown into the event by Georgie's straightforwardness. He was nearly as flustered as Nicholas, but at least he was not able to laugh at himself.
Oh, man.
I'm not sure that romantic extreme makes me an expert.
Oh,
yeah. Well, at least the brains and brawn can't be denied for the trio. But the one weakness is clear. None of you boys can room to save your
No!
She's not my crush. As much of a mess Nicholas had dissolved into, he was still together enough to set that misunderstanding straight. He was so offended his voice cracked. She's a psychic. I've been unaware of this for months. A psychic? Then just answer. George restated his suggestion, this time with an extra dose of obviously the undertone. There's no reason to hesitate as far as he could see. It had to be done. Nico bit his lip, twisted his face away from the screen, and for good measure squeezed his eyes shut. Finally, he tapped the answer. Hello? A small, high-pitched voice was on the other line. You knew what it sounded like because you heard it yourself. His voice was on speaker. Nico realized the horror. Everyone else is forced to be aware of it as well. Is this Nicholas there? It's Miss Calla. I'm calling all the way from the St. Sarah Bella boarding school to tell you your future. Give me a 10 and you know what to do then. Her catchphrase was well rehearsed and full of approachability. Calla was there to serve, but Nicholas only managed to squeak and fumbled to turn the speaker off without hanging up. Liz didn't have a similar struggle. She couldn't stop herself from voicing a thought aloud and entering the conversation. I heard that before, St. Sarah Bell. What do you mean? Who are you? Rather than replying to the queries lobbed at her, Liz instead delightfully declared the answer to a mystery that had only been that only her heard. Oh, that's where Shelia attended school. I think that's also there for. I think he was also there for a part of middle school, but that's beside the point. Oh, you know a fella SS Bites? What was his last name? I can't. Maybe if the stars line, tell him about his future. Mika only watched helplessly. You couldn't cut Carl off by changing the phone setting now, but the words weren't working well enough for him to explain that she did not have to chat with Liz. Either unaware or pointedly avoiding Nicholas' state, Liz bulldozed ahead. His name is Chilo Leon Fields, but don't train yourself to come up with something. He's like 22 and graduated from that school years ago. I imagine you won't have much to say about that. The breakdown of the situation was punctuated by a snort from Liz. Miss Calla came right back with a scoffer on. Before she even spoke, he got the impression Liz had a challenging response. I do know Chilo Fields. He's got those huge eyes, freckles, and those hats. I just lived in this town, but I didn't always go to SSB, but I was right nearby when he first moved in. So there, I do know him, and his old group, they're infamous. Oh. For all her normal snark, your sister was speechless. She didn't even try to further compete. You can blame your random sidekick, the little brother of your boyfriend. Happened to call was familiar with their childhood playmates. While there was luck, chance, fate, or pure coincidence, it was definitely odd. And you had to wonder if the group she referred to as the same one Jeremy was also a part of. He and Chilo did at least attend the same school together. You might have multiple acquaintances in common with Miss Calla. Hey, do you know Jeremy? Calla didn't bother asking who you were. Your question got an instant reaction. Jeremy who? Jeremy Miranda King. has green hair and orangey eyes when he went to school with Julian. Ah! I knew the man would speak. Jeremy's weird, but so funny. His eyes and his hair color combo is super rare. I've never seen anyone else with it, except on TV, though I know someone else with even more special colors. But anyways, her voice dipped lower and even more she said slowly with emphasized enunciation. It's valuable info priced at around $10, I need to be clear. My prediction is that he's attending a business college in another state. He's avoiding his parents, but they're waiting for him to graduate so they can convince him to come back. His friend Pran is keeping them company. Carla chirped again in an almost girl's tone, satisfied job well done. Here you are, home reading especially for you. Thank you for your wisdom, Carla. You're welcome. Something about that particular shot got through Nicholas. He blinked out the sunlock he's been sucking for an entire conversation and stuck up fast in full breath. Sorry about that, Carla. It's me, Nicholas Shazare. Whoops. I almost forgot that while I was calling somebody. You're the real client. What do you want to ask about? It'd be kind of nice to know why this is happening so late. I thought it was going to be in the morning. Sorry, she said, not sounding it even a tiny bit. My big brother Chenny visited. He's more important than you. There wasn't much Nico could say against that retort, though he still couldn't stop himself from looking sour. Not too surprising. He learned how he felt on the receiving side of such attitude and didn't appreciate the taste of humble pie. Both Derek and George guiltily chuckled at the silence of such a display of karma. Hey! The voice coming through Nicholas' phone remained unapologetic, but a spark of genuine instinct in the present returned to the self-described future seer. That's what you want to talk about. You got a big brother, too. Miss Carla didn't practice the concept of private privacy. That was the second harsh lesson Nicholas got in a matter of minutes. He slapped a hand against one eye and hurried to end the call before any further education of life's discussion could be taught. Let's go, forget it. I hope you have a good day. Tell Shadow I said hi. He doesn't know who you are.
See you.
Goodbye, Father. From his face to his phone, Nicholas smacked a finger against the screen to end the psychic connection. With a deep sigh, Nicholas's whole torso slumped over. He went low enough that his hands almost scraped the floors. The encounter had deflated him. What was that about? George posed the question out of simple curiosity. He didn't give a hint of judgment or suspicion, but Nicholas reacted as if George asked where the last cookie went to his crumb-covered little brother. Nothing. It was about nothing. The shoulder shot down by George took George by surprise. He frowned. The biggest brother of the bunch took that as a sign to step forward with a soft smile and almost some parental words.
Well,
Nico can have his fun. We all wonder what might happen in the future. George's usual placidity returned after a shrug. He could accept that Nicholas didn't appreciate any attempt at prying and focus on chatting with Derek about his own matters.
no.
I haven't. I'm not sure I want to know. Realizing everything about me, everyone else, was entirely set to the point where each move could be predicted would make the world feel almost pointless, even a good future. But if it was a bad one, that would be even worse, I'm convinced, and I definitely don't want to hear about my future. George nodded to himself mainly. He reasoned that it all out and the chapter of the conversation could be closed. Until a low murmur came across the slow-drooping figure of Nicholas that left an ugly wrinkle across the face. It's easy for you to say. He hadn't been trying to join the conversation. He made that crystal clear it wasn't a topic for discussion. Yet Nicholas was agitated enough about whatever it was to voice contempt. I'm curious. What's that supposed to mean, Nicholas? Free of suspicion was no longer a description that applied to George's words. They were dripping in it. George's attention was now on him. Nicholas coolly peered off at his brother between the long, thick strands of hair that dangled in front of his eyes. He didn't speak. Derek's characteristic grin strained under the rising tension that he attempted to sidestep. He clapped his hands together and made another go at shifting the focus.
That's a bummer.
Nicholas is really getting older. He has a lot more nowadays, huh? The weight of the world starting to get to him. That sucks, but there's no avoiding it as you grow up. Derek succeeded in getting George icy stare pointed his way instead, but it didn't last. George watched him intently, only long enough to read what he could from his older brother's acts and deeds, then came to some kind of conclusion. At that point, the middle Cesare turned again to Nicholas. He didn't look at him, it was through him. Some things don't change even when you're older. George didn't grit his teeth or shout. There was a lack of feeling, a disconnection that was even worse than anger would have been. Nicholas' fingers tightened into fists and sprung right up. He stared into his brother's face defiantly. He shook with an impotent rage George lacked. George had been looking down on him, and could easily still even be at Nicholas's full height. That extra sting to whatever the younger Caesar said next. You know what sucks more than growing up? Being the last to grow up. I'm the one who gets left behind. I'm basically the only child now. It's just me and Mom and Dad at home. That flash of fury burned out quick. Nicholas began to crumble away with every cracking sentence.
It's not fair.
And the worst part is I'm probably just being annoying, right? The spoiled baby of the family who's always crying for attention. Of course, adults have to go out and do their adult things. It's dumb to think that people could do anything else, so I can't even talk about it with anybody. Nicholas's plight devastated Derek. He was ready to move heaven and earth to solve the conundrum of aging if he could, but George's features didn't so much as twitch. Did you really not tell anyone? It was the callousness that left Derek speechless. He couldn't stop the days from going by, and he couldn't even stop his younger brothers from being mad at each other. Nicholas and George Rosaire glared at one another unflinchingly. What's that supposed to mean, George? You told Derek, didn't you? He knew how you felt, and I bet he knows what that call was about. What else would he have been talking about by the pool? You can always talk to Derek, only him. George had said that all without saying it. He accused Nicholas of loving Derek more than him, and George hated that. Well, am I right? The staring contest ended right there as Nicholas hung his head down, dropping his glance down to the floor. That was only about it. The war wasn't over yet. You're so smart and yet somehow not smart at all. Unaffected by the insult, but distinctly frustrated by the lack of a real answer, George once again looked at Derek. Derek's mouth continued to hang open in horror, but he finally closed too. He turned his gaze away from the middle child, only he didn't have any words to offer that time. George stood there between his two silent brothers, futilely turning from one to another. They were crammed together in the same place, but seemed to be so far away. Ultimately, it was the lack of response that George took as an answer. All alone, right next to the ones he cared about most, George whispered bitterly.
Fine.
Fine. I knew it. The suffocating stillness exploded. Nicholas wasn't finished. You don't know crap. I know there's no need to having us three of us around. Derek's more than enough for everybody. Shots were fired back and forth with no ground gain on either side. I was literally 6 when I stepped over Derek. You can get over it already. I'll get over it as soon as you do. Nicholas thrust his arms out wide, caught in the heat of the feud. The need to take George down, he sacrificed his secret and held onto so tightly. Well, guess what, George? I did tell Derek about that call. That means he can tell you all about how I never mentioned to him and I never mentioned to him about that stupid psychic. I have 2 older brothers, not just him. I haven't forgotten that even you thought you were sure you have. When I asked for the reading, Derek was already long gone. I wasn't going to demand the universe bring him back. He had better things to do. That's not... Derek instinctively spoke out against the idea that family was such a low priority, but he managed to hold his tongue. There was between Nicholas and George, neither could even see Derek amidst the mutual misdirected hers. I wanted to ask how much longer I'll at least have you nearby. Maybe you'll go away from college, or maybe you'll stay here. I didn't know. But I might have felt bad if I asked you directly in case you're going to leave. I didn't want to hold you back from going wherever in life you had in mind with or without me around. That's the only reason it was easier to admit to Derek, so there. Nicholas's arms were folded defiantly to mimic the snide closing remark the psychic used to tell this off. However, nothing came about him crossed as truly satisfied. He had to twist his face away to try hiding how glossy his eyes were. Nicholas couldn't avoid the throat-clenching emotion in his voice. George was completely floored. Shocked, sorrowed, and relief fought for control over his face. It contorted with deep creases. You understood then why Derek had kept so quiet about what happened. It wasn't his place to admit something like that in Nico's behalf. After a pained stretch of silence, the feeling that settled in George's heart was an Olympic-sized pull of relief.
I'm sorry.
Nicholas, I'm sorry. It was a struggle for George to speak. He swallowed thickly, his Adam's apple bobbing. He didn't try to cover how watery his eyes had become. "You're right about me, and I was wrong about you. I haven't gotten over the memory of being the odd man out, even though it was years ago. That's not fair. None of us have been." George looked past the sky, getting lost in the great expanse as his mind sank deep into the past. "You and Derek have had those moments that are only for the two of you. We're not a set. We're individual people, and we have our own relationships. Though, to me, he's still always felt as if there's more moments of Nicholas and Derek than any other. When I was a kid, I never thought I could win. We were clear about whose company we were looking for. I didn't want to make things awkward by being a third wheel, and mostly I didn't want to test the waters and to see how much I was welcome between you and Derek. I was too afraid that I wouldn't be. It was better to tell myself I didn't need to be a part of it." His eyes and hands squeezed shut. George was unable to face his brother directly, but still forced himself to continue. "But as much as I wanted to count myself out, I wanted to be included. I wanted you to say, 'George is back,' when I showed up, or you wouldn't go somewhere if I wasn't coming too. And I wish I admitted that a long time ago." The stiffness over George's whole form released after he said the truth. His fists unclenched, his shining earth-green eyes could be seen again. He let go for real. While George was a pillar of peace, his brother was the opposite. Nicholas vigorously scrubbed at his face, transferring tears and snot to his bare arms rather than his face. When he could at least pretend, he pulled himself together, and Nicholas spoke again with absolute conviction. "I'm sorry I ever treated you like that. Back then, and all I think about is how I feel on stuff. Obviously, it's easy for me to move on when it's nothing else, because I was the one getting my way. I stopped wanting it to be that way when I stopped wanting it to be that way, and that was my closure. But now you're the ones having a good time while I'm watching on the sidelines. That's barely a place for me anymore. I really know how it feels instead of maybe getting some empathy. I still only thought about me and needed someone else to care." "Sorry, George. I guess what I got was coming with this." The conclusion brought a disagreeable frown to George's face. He looked over the youngest, though a narrowed, serious gaze, but the firmness was founded on affection. It was unmistakable then. George wasn't simply a middle child. He was an older brother. Along the way, in his own way, and even when Nicholas couldn't see it, he had always had it. "Nicholas, you were in elementary school, remember? Why should you be punished for that? Besides, you're not giving yourself enough credit. Me and Derek did what we wanted to do without your support. It's been years since you put your feelings over ours. Going to college, moving out, growing up at different times, it brings separation. But abandoning you isn't what you deserve, and even if you did, I wouldn't be glad over it happening anyways. I do care about fairness. I'm biased." George's brow stayed pinched, but he lost the air of a teaching schooling their misguided students, the warmth of their affection to a parents. Above all else, my family should get as much as good as they can get, even if that means they're spoiled sometimes. They should be spoiled.
"Don't worry."
And that sentiment goes double for my little brother. Derek might have too, but don't forget, Nico, you're the only one I got in the whole world. Nicholas's tears went unwiped. They were free to roll down while he shouted as his lungs could manage. "Love you, George. Whenever you decided to pick a college nearby, that was one of the best things that happened to me. It was great when we got to work on those two big puzzles together and play the weirdest games.
Thank you.
I never want to lose that, even though I know I can't hang around you here for the rest of your life. I want you to keep coming back. I'm grateful every time you come through the door." Aw, that's so nice. George's lips trembled. His blinking was rapid. For someone as reserved as him, the display of emotion no less than Nico's heartfelt declaration. "I don't want to lose you either. I love you." Sheepishly, George lifted his arms from his sides. A small, subtle gesture. He didn't even bring them all the way up, but he took the initiative to reach out. Nicholas didn't even need any more of the sign than that. He bounded ahead and jumped into his big brother's chest. George's long-held fears of rejection shattered for good. It took a second to get over the emotional and physical stun of Nicholas's hold, but soon George reciprocated. The two of them embraced one another's fully, with nothing left but standing in between. They were left in peace to have that. But it was over, and the two young men began to part. They The piece missing from their brotherly bond took a step forward. I'm sorry, too. The unexpected statement got an immediate laugh from the recipients. George and Nicholas threw their heads back and stayed unified with an arm over their shoulders. What did you do? For those two, nothing more was more of a joke than Derek, Mr. Responsibility, the perfect gesture, needing to apologize. Derek scratched the back of his head, accepting his turn as the third wheel. It might be awkward over butting in, but Derek absolutely meant what he said. I did way too much for the wrong things, and not nearly enough of the right things. I'm the one who insists on handling Nico all the time because I didn't want to ask for help and because I saw myself as the only big brother of the family. My overinflated sense of importance and martyrdom is what took away any space for George. And that was only when I thought it was something I needed to handle. If everything else was fine, I wasn't there at all. I was too busy with school and practice trying to prove myself. Neither one of you are to blame with how everything went down. You had to be demanding to get my attention, or you had to stay out of my way.
I really messed up.
I should have been there more. Not more, but better, and letting you each have each other too. Least I can do is apologize. Dale's attempt to accept responsibility was met with an almost fatherly chastisement from both of the younger siblings. George was able to glance down at Derek in the way that he could do with his little brother, while Nicholas shook his head and let out a world-weary sigh. That's not true at all.
No.
Yeah, no way, Derek. I took demanding attention to a whole other planet. Sure, I was a kid, but that doesn't mean I was cool and easy to live with. You did the best you could, but better than I would have if I had to be the responsible one. Can you imagine what a disaster that would have been? We wouldn't have survived this long. The imagination brought Nico's giggles back. It lifted a sad smile onto George's face. Not the comment itself, but seeing his younger brothers happy. He spoke sincerely to the older.
It's okay.
I need to say sorry as well. You didn't try to push me aside, you just didn't have a chance to. I saw what I saw between you and Nico and how you were so close. You had something that I wasn't a part of. But I decided on my own to wait around for both of you to come to me while I never even attempted to be there for either of you. I should have made an effort for my family. You were there for me. George, in his calm presence, was one of a kind for his family. He was used to those around him being far louder. However, Derek and Nicholas' insistent yells so caught him out the middle son off guard. It was full of rejection in the earnest admission, but it wasn't as much as George believed that about himself. The refuting of it wasn't a surprise to anyone else. Each brother viewed their own faults as the source of all problems, while each others could barely see whose shortcomings past the love they held for the other family member. From end to end of the semicircle of stairs, smiles began to spread. Alright, we're all sorry, and none of us need to be. How's that?
Yeah.
That's great. Great. The two of you spoke the same words, one after the other, sewing together. Dick watched them, swirling with pride. They got to call him his family, his brothers, and his friends. Perfect. But let me frame what I was saying. Derek had a grin bright with confidence. He never looked so much like the brother he hoped to be as he showed up to his little siblings. He clapped his hand in each of one of their backs, making a proper huddle amongst the trio, and stared at each of them head on.
I got you.
Nico, if you ever decide you are too big to need your older brother anymore and never want to see me break my heart, please don't stop letting me be there as much as I can. Nicholas sniffled once more before nodding determined. George, you'll always be my co-pilot. I know you'll always be backing me up since we were kids, and you're welcome with me anytime, anywhere. Your presence is my pleasure. A dark red flush flushed over George's face. He was too embarrassed to react as steadfast. Instead, he offered a shaky thumbs up in the center of the loop. It was true that George was Nicholas' reliable big brother, and he might have been the tallest of the bunch. But in front of Derek, you could never miss that he was also a little sibling. Letting out a bark of laughter, Derek gave the boys another smack across the shoulder, his bones for good measure.
I promise.
And I promise to always find a way to see you sooner or later. And when I can't be there in person, I'll call. We're never gonna lose touch. I love you, bros. Tightening his grip on their shoulders, Derek physically signified his vow to never let his brothers go. Nicholas responded by letting his head rest on Derek's solid arm.
Thanks.
Thanks, Derek. I can call too. Love you. Same. For both of what he said, I'm calling love you. He followed Nicholas after Nicholas in more words. Derek placed his cheek against the well-trimmed side of Derek's head. This time, with the full trio of the Cesare brothers snugged them to a loving embrace. Aww. He looked on in relief. The tension, hurt, and subsequent comfort had been easily felt without participating. You had been entirely frozen, attention fixed on the three brothers until a nudge to your arm brought you focus to your own situation. Lidge was smirking at you. At some point, both of you had stood. Couldn't even exactly remember when you got to your feet. In the spirit of sibling affection, Luna, let me say that I appreciate you being here together with you, Luna. Because it would be even more awkward if I was stuck watching the scene by myself. I love you too, Liz, you said affectionately. Those weren't the words that she'd said, but you're certain that's what she meant. You get me. The two of you snickered in the palms of your hands. As an attempt to be a little quiet, but your own sibling camaraderie was notable enough to gain the onlookers of its own. Your sister and you glance over to the intimate scene of brotherly love, only to find the group staring back at you. The three men expressed their gradient of embarrassment, Nico being the least fussed and George the most. Derek was in the middle of the scare, too amused and uplifted to feel that ashamed. But each came to that same conclusion about it. One more apology was needed after all. Sorry. Totally forgot you two were there. Oops. Sorry again. My fault. Pushed Nico to talk at a bad time. Shouldn't bear that in front of you. I would say not. She leaned forward and the floor braces she wore wrinkled on her wrists from the dramatic way she placed her hands against her hips. You know, I was very upset when you spoke about Derek being enough for everyone. I could hardly stay out of it. No offense, but George is my favorite of the Cesare trio. Liz wasn't known for a subtle touch. She was on the nose with all her thoughts and opinions. That kind of cheekness could only lead to one thing. George was blushing again. But you don't have to... A large hand landed on square George's head, started into stopping. It was Derek's. He winked admirably. Hey, she's allowed to speak her mind after we did. It's a solid choice. Agreed. That's a sensible lady with good taste. George smiled shyly. Thanks. Both of my brothers are my favorites. Me too.
Right.
Same. Response flowed into one another in perfect order, like dominoes lined up exactly so. Derek's my favorite.
Really?
Yeah, another smart call. Derek's the best. Not even joking when I said that is the answer that makes the most sense. Glancing between the pages of each, noting the individual and familiarity in their features, you thought getting to spend this trip with those brothers was something you'd always be thankful for. When Derek's laughter filled the air, it rang different than before, playing a new song. Man, if I was younger, this would have been the point where I jumped right into the pool. Clothes be damned. Luckily, I'm an adult enough to remember that I got an expensive photo in my pocket, not to mention my wallet. I kind of wanted to. I was gonna just leave my phone and stuff on land. The solution was all the younger Cesare needed to literally jump in the chance for more trouble. Nicholas's eyes glared like the sun-drenched water was tempting.
Yeah,
I want to go in the pool. Far less enthusiastically, George joined in the prompt swim.
sure.
That doesn't sound too bad. Yet, the nonchalant way he shrugged over it seemed even more daring than Nicholas' open exploration. Let's do it. Before the third brother weighed in, Nicholas started to pull out his phone, the original match that lit a slow-burning fuse so much earlier in the day. Though you were faster, things were already sitting on one side of the tables. That was it for Derek Cesare. His little brother might have been able to party harder than he could, but he didn't tend to be left that far behind. He wasn't so old after all.
I see how it is.
It's on. 4 phones, as well as wallets, keys, coins, old receipts, wrappers, and a few stray puzzle pieces were fished out and piled up for safekeeping. Your sister's belongings stayed within the warmth of a romper. She was once again the incredulous observer rather than the participant. This episode clearly entertained her more, though. Well, as the actual older sibling here, I'll supervise from up here. Thanks, Liz. A teasing quietude. Yeah, sister, our lives are in your hands. Then you were off. Alongside Derek, George, and Nicholas, you dashed in a row straight for the edge and flew into the air without hesitation. 1, 2, 3, 4. The brothers and you crashed through the water, dissipating into an explosion of white bubbles. A shiver went through your body. You hit us with such a sudden shock of cold, your heavy clothes fought against you as you rose, but then you broke to the surface again. Seconds later, 3 brunette heads with a smiling face and popped up around you. FUCCA brothers celebrated with a reckless abandon. Woo! Awesome! Yeah! Liz applauded her show from the outside the splash zone. It was a wise choice, not only because of the obvious crossfire from the jump, but because Nicholas immediately started flinging water skyward. The fence wasn't floating down. The old water war was raging in another age. Smacking and splashing, the defensive and offensive moves, and general merrymaking occurred in the depths of that summer day. When the truce was finally called, a part of the peace talks included drying off before going home, and so you and the brothers clambered out of the pool. George gratefully took a seat once more, and after so much excitement, a metal pool chair was a welcome friend. You and Liz lounged by him. Even Derek and Nicholas gave the chairs a chance. Your merry gang of 5 wallowed away in the best of the afternoon together. The lives you were leading were so different than those that there was never an end to new things to tell and hear. But eventually it was unanimously agreed that it was time to bring the party back home to the Cesare home. The kids also visit with their poor old parents, as Liz put it. The pool that was almost abandoned much earlier was officially left empty. After a brief stroll, you made it back. It was nearly evening by then.
So?
And with that, I think this is a good place to end this episode here. I hope you guys have a good day, night, week, month of your lives, and may the stars forever guide your path wherever it might lead you into the future. Goodbye, and hope to see you all again soon.